Alright, today I wanted to talk about XDefiant. Is having no skill-based matchmaking in the current state of the game enough to keep people playing? I'm not talking about just enough people to be able to find lobbies and have matches. I'm talking about enough people for it to be sustainable long-term as a business investment. As I stated in a previous video, Hyperscape had a very similar track record to this, so it's kind of concerning. On top of the fact that content creation has really fallen off for this game, so I can see over time a lot of people who make videos and stuff for this are going to get less and less views and become demotivated. There's clearly less demand. A lot of the biggest content creators for this game can't get very many views without also talking about Call of Duty. If you look at Blame Truth's last 3 weeks of videos, every single one of them has Black Ops 6 in the title, with no mention of XDefiant whatsoever. I would be very curious to see how many views Blame Truth could get making a video tips and tricks on XDefiant or something just talking about XDefiant. When I'm running around lobby to lobby, I don't see a whole lot of other players who have any kind of cosmetic skins or anything like that, so that leads me to believe most people aren't spending a cent in the game. Eventually, if the game's not earning enough money, the people who make the game are not going to be able to pay the developers. They're not going to be able to keep the lights on in the studio, and it's going to eventually shut down. Although Twitch numbers, although YouTube numbers and all these other things don't necessarily tell you how many players are actually on the game, 20 or 30,000 players playing at any given time is not a big enough long-term investment, I don't think. If it's a free-to-play game and there's not enough people making in-game purchases to justify the server costs, to justify all these other things, and they're simply not going to be able to improve the netcode, especially if it's involving them not having enough server allocations. I heard something in that Tom Henderson article before the game was released about toxic work culture and everything like that, and they said that they were trying to put 100 different match partitions per server. So as the money goes down, they're going to be trying to stuff more and more matches per server, and the hit registration and all these other things are only going to get worse and worse if the game is scraping for cash. So if you're one of those people that's constantly in comment sections defending the game, you know somebody in XDENIAL, then spend some money in the game if you feel so strongly about it. But also understand that one single person's not going to speak. Even if you bought everything in the store, that's not enough to save it. It's going to take the community getting larger. It's going to take literally more mass appeal for the game to grow, for the game to get in a better state. A lot of people just say give it time. A lot of people are kind of getting impatient with that. There's going to be a lot of other games coming out that give the game competition over time. Also, they fail to realize that time is ticking. Usually people saying give it time are people who either have never had a business themselves. They've never tried to do their own business venture to make money. They might have had a job here or there. It's probably usually teenage kids, honestly, if I'm being real with you. Most of the people that are immature in comment sections and getting so emotional and stuff are people without a fully developed prefrontal cortex. One thing that I've mentioned before is their use of Google Cloud services, and this would explain the game feeling bad when it comes to hit registration and desync, because they can't afford to have as many servers as they actually need physical hardware, so they're using the more economical method of using cloud servers. So we're playing on virtual machines essentially. I remember making a Reddit post about this and how I was concerned about it and how it could affect the performance, and I think like a developer or something came on there and they were super offended, and they were like, cloud is only 3% worse than bare metal. And it's like 3% on a game where milliseconds matters is important. 3% is that reason why it feels like shit. 3% is enough to make you lose a gunfight. If you look at the most well-performing FPS games on the market, aside from Warzone, just because it's designed for the average person who just doesn't even know any better, the average person on Warzone is so casual that they don't even know what desync or lag is. Same thing with Call of Duty multiplayer. They just play the game. It's the same person that buys Madden every year, the same person that buys FIFA, 2K. If you've been around gaming long enough, you remember back when NBA 2K, you used to be able to download all the new rosters. I don't even think that's a feature in those games anymore. So I might actually have to look into the terms of service and see if there's actually an obligation from the developers and the publishers to give us a certain amount of seasons or a certain amount of content for XDefiant, or if they just have the ability to pull the plug at any given time. Because if that's the case and it's underperforming financially, nobody cares about how you feel. Nobody cares about whether or not you can get lobbies faster than the next man. Nobody cares about all these different things. It's just a business at the end of the day. You could look at gaming as an art just like I do. You could look at it as a way to express yourself and improve and get better over time. And the game's gonna constantly keep getting better, but the people in suits don't care about that. All that they see is dollar signs, and if those dollar signs are not there, they're gonna pull the plug. I really think that they've massively dropped the ball deciding not to put the game on Steam. I don't know why they would do that other than to try to hide the numbers or something like that. You know, they need to do anything they possibly can to boost the numbers up at this point. I'm personally going to keep playing the game. I'm going to check it out anytime some new content drops. I'm going to stay tuned to everything. But in terms of content, I might slow down a little bit because the data shows like there's not very many people who actually care to even view my videos recently. And it's funny because the data shows that the video that actually boosted my channel was the one talking about sweaty players and how the casual fan base is kind of dying off. Some people will say that they play the game casually and everything, but you're actually in the minority. You're some of the few casual people that aren't getting pissed off, whether it's the netcode or whether it's going against players in stacks or whether you just hate the bunny hopping, and whatever the case may be. Me personally, the only thing that annoys me is actually going against like 4 stacks when I can tell that the players are playing together. Fortunately, I think most of those kids are going back to school today in North America, but I'm going to keep playing the game. I think as far as the channel goes, I'm going to broaden out to like FPS in general, videos that are kind of like video documentary type of things, as opposed to just focusing on one singular game, because I don't want my channel to live or die by any particular game. Looking at the Steam charts right now, Counter-Strike 2 currently has 1,260,000 players online, and the peak was 1.34 million. Keep that in mind. PUBG has 637,000 people online right now. The hit registration in the desync is literally simply like the worst on the market. Like, aside from when you get put into a skill-based matchmaking lobby, you know, with people in Brazil or something, and you're living in somewhere in the east coast of the United States, you know, of course you're going to have desync when you're playing a player that has 250 ping. So that's one of the things XDefiant has going for it, putting you against other players with relatively decent ping, except for when they're in a party together and some of them have 90 something ping or higher because you got a friend playing from the East Coast and their West Coast buddy joins their party, and then the ping's all thrown off. I mean, even just the team balancing and everything, you can tell it's taken a hit because of the lower player pool recently on XDefiant when you're playing against people that have full stack parties and you're a solo player, or you're playing against people with higher ping. I don't see the point in this whole idea that XDefiant has to compete with Call of Duty. XDefiant's good, Call of Duty sucks, or Call of Duty's good, XDefiant sucks. In an ideal world, both of them would continue getting better and better and push the other one to strive for greatness, because the consumer wins when the market is competitive. I know there's a lot of dumb people in the Call of Duty community, especially because it's just such a massive community. But I've seen so much immaturity from the XDefiant community, it honestly baffles me. Whether it's people just being woefully ignorant, people in denial, people making emotional responses to logic, it's just not sustainable. If anything, even that type of mentality is going to push people away. This whole get good and this whole idea that I play a game with no SBMM, I'm an elite player, and all this ego, self-aggrandizing bullshit that I see going on from people that probably are not as good as they think they are. Like, just because somebody plays one game or another doesn't make somebody better than somebody else. And there's probably a lot of people playing Counter-Strike or some other thing that would wipe the fucking floor with XDefiant players who think that they're the shit. All jokes aside, people think that they're like God's gift to gaming. And I think a lot of this is kind of like putting blinders on people. People are unable to see what's right in front of them. And all that I've ever tried to do with this channel is speak my truth. It may not be the truth. Some of it may be objectively true, but I'm just calling it as I see it. And I'm trying to put my 2 cents in to hopefully we can make some positive change. Hopefully I can make an impact and make the improvements that the game needs, because I don't want to see the game go the same way that Hyperscape did. Hope everybody has a great day though, and I hope you don't take too much offense to this. I know some people will. I know there's going to be some ankle biters in my comment section.